Hey everyone, we are at Elora Brewing Company and I'm joined by owner Matt. Matt, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
How did it get started? Where did the inspiration and the idea for a brewery come from?
Well, like several craft breweries in the region that we know of and that are out there, it started with home brewing in the garage and a number of interested people that are passionate about craft beer. So in late 2013, my neighbor actually and I were doing some craft brewing and just brewing in the garage and having a really good time and being fairly successful at it, making some pretty good brews. And always realized the potential for a brewery in Elora and talked about it as like sort of a pipe dream. So we went over to the guys at Block 3 and my partner Jim sort of asked them, say, hey, you know, we're thinking about starting a craft brewery in Elora. Wondering if you guys can sort of guide the process. They said, wait a minute, a couple of our really good friends want to do that as well. You should contact them. And at first we were like, what? Other people? But anyway, we got together and met. And turns out they've already been in talks with our brewer, who is our current partner. So there's 5 partners in total, which is, some would say is quite a lot, but we all get along really well. So we started to meet and started to discuss the possibilities of what if we could have an actual craft brewery in Elora. We looked around at a number of properties. We ended up getting along really well, like I said, and ended up finding this hardware store, this old hardware store that was built in 1868, and eventually purchased it about a year later after a year's worth of planning in May of 2014, right? And then spent 11 months renovating it. Officially opened our doors on August 12th of 2015 and haven't looked back.
Like you said, it's an old hardware store. You walk in, it's got the exposed brick, it's got the nice wood and everything. How important was it for you to create an atmosphere that, or an impression when people first walk in?
Well, extremely important. We really wanted something that reflected the town of Elora itself. Elora is full of artisans, it's full of heritage, it's full of beautiful old buildings, and we really wanted to emulate that in how the building looked. So what we did was we stripped everything down to the bones and found out that it had its own charm in itself. So what we did was we made it very simplistic to reflect, like I said, the town itself, and even the time period when the hardware store was actually built in 1868. So, you know, it would have been these old stone walls and lots of wood and sort of that heritage feel. But what we tried to do was also incorporate a lot of the old materials that we extracted from here in the building process. So the bar, all of our tables, and the stairs are made from the joists that we actually pulled out of the building that were built in the mid-1800s. So we salvaged those and turned all that in. We used the tin ceiling, the antique tin ceiling, even the green trim from the old apartment over here, where they tried to incorporate that, because really when you can provide a story alongside a product or a place, it makes it much more meaningful.
Now, at this point in the interview, usually we like talking about how the local part and the beer mix together, but you guys have an extra component. You guys also serve food.
Right, that's right.
So tell us about that. That's something that not many places have,
right.
Or a brewing company is one that serves food.
So at the Elora Brewing Company, we also have a full kitchen, and that's run by Chef Ben Saxon. And he's a Stratford-trained chef who has sort of hung up his whites to sort of bring those skills into a gastropub type environment. And we're really fortunate that he's one of the more conscious, chefs and cooks around, is that he really delves into the idea of sustainable farming and farm-to-table food. Farm-to-table food could be considered as a trend, but he really does it where he's actually talking to the farmers, actually getting the produce from the farmers directly from the farm, not through distributors. Some of our stuff comes through that. We can't be, it's difficult to be completely sufficient from farms. But that sort of really emulates in our own perspective with our beer. For instance, our spent grain that comes out of the tanks there actually goes out to various sort of pig farms in the region, and then we then use that pork in our process, so it's very full circle.
Before I get too hungry, let's move
Right.
on to the beer aspect, because that's what you guys, after all, you're a brewery. So How would you define or describe your style of beer? Like, did you have an idea of what you wanted to make coming into it, or was it just a constantly evolving sort of idea?
Well, I think every craft brewery struggles with the notion of what beer they're going to launch first. And if somebody had have told me that, hey Matt, you're going to open a craft brewery in about 5 years and you're going to launch with a lager, I would have said no dice, right? I don't think so. But our brewer had a great idea to say, hey, what if we make a triple grain lager? What if it's equal parts barley, wheat, and rye? It'd be nice and dry and crisp and refreshing, low alcohol. And we said, hey, that actually has sort of a meaning you can actually get behind and talk about the uniqueness of that beer. So each of our beers, we feel, has a bit of uniqueness to it. We strive to create our flagship brands, which are Three Fields Lager, our Lady Friend IPA, which won the silver medal at the Ontario Brewing Awards.
Which, by the way, is a fantastic beer if you haven't already tried it, so go out there and find it.
Oh, great. Yeah, we like it too. And then our Elora Borealis, which won bronze at the Canadian Brewing Awards for North American IPA. So we were really proud of those achievements in our first year. And then doing our things like, we just are almost through our Wandering Monk, which is a Belgian-style IPA. And what we're leaning more towards is really sort of including local producers within the beer and not just the food as well. So we just created a Belgian wit called White Whale, and it has local malts from Driscoll Malts in Guelph, hops, whole leaf hops from Prince Edward County, and yeast that's actually cultivated with Escarpment Labs in Guelph. We're doing some really fantastic yeast work throughout Ontario, actually.
You know, you had mentioned Block 3 and how you went to them for a little bit of assistance and sort of guidance to get yourself started. And I see that on your rotating taps, you've got their King Street Saison as one of them.
Yeah, that's right.
So talk to us about the co-opetition aspect of the
that's an excellent sort of phrase or word, because we actually have started through some efforts with some local craft breweries, something called the Waterloo Wellington Craft Collective. And that's where all the craft breweries and cideries within the region, there's about 14 of us, all get together and sort of discuss taking ownership of our sort of craft, the craft market within our region, and discussing things like meaningful events, discussing things like even pricing and things like that. So it's a very meaningful collective, and that's all the craft breweries coming together, and we've never thought of each other as competition. Right. Block 3 was very cooperative with us and sort of guided us through our first year of financials. Inasante has been great. Wellington's been great. Like, everybody's been just excellent and super supportive. Right. So when there's somebody new on the block, it's like, hey, how can we help these guys out? How can we lend some expertise and experience? Especially Wellington, like, it's a company that's been around for 30 years now, and they are the most helpful, most successful, one of the most successful in the region in Ontario, one of the oldest, and they're still willing to say, hey, yeah, we've done it all. What can you learn from us? What can we teach you?
Right. I think that's one of the coolest things about that industry is just everyone's willing to help each other out to make an excellent product. You know, you're all friends in the end.
And really, at the end of it all, craft beer has, still about 15% of the entire market share in Ontario. So it's really about encouraging the consumer to be adventurous and make better choices.